That's the whole reason I do it.
Opposite.
Yeah.
Do the opposite.
We'll think about next year real carefully.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, you can.
No, I couldn't do it.
I just take a lot of stops.
I'm going to turn that into silence.
Our clock up there is a little fast.
Yeah, it is.
Can you imagine being shot at? Look, Andrew said he was driving in there and he just went to turn this way.
Okay, we're ready. Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the Ottumwa Board of Health to order. I'd remind folks in the audience to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate. And then let's all please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Chris, would you go ahead and take the roll, please?
Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Strebe.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Approve the minutes from meeting number 11 on June 19th, 2018 as presented. Recommendation, approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set to consider condemnation of the structures on the lot located at 141 South Iowa Avenue.
Good evening, Jody. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. On your screen is a picture of 141 South Iowa. It was placarded January 2nd of this year as the result of a fire, and the fire destroyed the house. The owners have been notified to remove the fire debris, and they failed to remove all of it. So staff is recommending condemnation so the city can proceed with hiring a demolition contractor to remove the rest of the debris.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item on the agenda, seeing no one come forth, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Condemn the structures located at 141 South Iowa Avenue. Order prompt demolition, removal, and leveling of the lot, and direct all costs attendant to such actions, including administrative costs, to be assessed against the property and/or collected from the owner or owners thereof. Recommendation, approve the condemnation of the structures located at 141 South Iowa Avenue.
Move the recommendation as presented. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set to consider condemnation of the structures on the lot located at 614 Boone.
Jody, you have the floor again.
Thank you. This property was placarded February 28th of this year, and before the owners could begin any sort of work on it, there was a fire in May, and staff is now recommending condemnation and demolition. The owners cannot make the required repairs.
This also is a public hearing, so if there's anyone that wants to address this item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Condemn the structures located at 614 Boone, order prompt demolition, removal, and leveling of the lot, and direct all costs attendant to such actions, including administrative cost, to be assessed against the property and/or collected from the owner or owners thereof. Recommendation, approve the condemnation of the structures located at 614 Boone.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Berg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any other business for the Board of Health? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
At this time, we'll move into the regular meeting for the city council. We need to take the roll again, please.
Councilmember Stevens?
Here.
Councilmember Strebe?
Here.
Councilmember Berg?
Here.
Councilmember Dalby?
Here.
Councilmember Rowe?
Here.
Mayor Lazio?
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 24 on July 24th, 2018, as presented. Appointment of Ryan Mitchell to the Zoning Board of Adjustment, term to expire 12/12/2020. Approve the memorandum of understanding between the City of Ottumwa and Wapello County for the 2018 JAG grant. Approve the appointment of Zachary Simonson to the position of Building Inspector in the Health Department effective August 6, 2018. Setting August 21st, 2018 as the date of a public hearing on the proposed spending plans for Justice Assistance Grant Program funds and the amount of $10,362. Consideration of acknowledgement settlement agreement between the City of Ottumwa and Stop and Go Drive-Thru. Resolution number 211, 2018, setting September 4th, 2018 as the date of a public hearing on the disposition of city-owned property located at 208 North McLean. Beer and/or liquor applications for Morgan's Corner Bar and Grill at 436 West 2nd Street, The Rusty Barrel at 1317 East Main Street, Courtside Bar and Grill at 2511 North Court, temporary outdoor service area from 8/22 to 8/25, 2018. Owl's Nest at 116 South Court, temporary outdoor service area from 8/18 to 8/19, 2018. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Before we move into tonight's formal agenda, I would just like to take a moment and on behalf of the entire council and administrative staff, thank our Ottumwa Police Department for the outstanding police work that they conducted this past Friday with the active shooter situation. The PD did a great job of protecting our citizens, but especially the children at Liberty School. The support you receive from surrounding law enforcement officers is a tribute to the respect and loyalty they show to our Ottumwa Police Department. This is an active investigation being handled by the DCI, so we elected officials will not be making any comments until the DCI makes their formal report. I especially want to thank the officers that went back to Liberty School the next day and, or I guess Monday morning and greeted the children and made them feel safe and had fun with them and reassured them because that was a pretty traumatic event for them. What could have been a real tragic situation was handled in a very professional manner. And I want to say thanks to all the law enforcement officers who came to Ottumwa to serve and protect our citizens. And I hope we don't have to deal with that type of situation again. But again, a great job, and thanks, Chief, for your hard work. Now let's move to item C. I need an approval for tonight's agenda.
Move the approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
We're ready for reports from our city officers, boards, commissions, and committees, and so I'm going to ask City Administrator Andy Morris to make some comments. So Andy, you have the floor.
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. There are a number of items that are listed in addition to the two items that are with us this evening. The very first one is the Main Street project update. That is an item that the engineering department has been working on for the past several months. You may recall there was a press release that was put out today regarding the progress and I would argue moving forward in completing this project. But Mayor, if it would please the council, I would just ask you to introduce Mr. Seals and have him give the presentation.
Okay, Larry, please take the podium and we'll be interested to hear your comments and the progress. Larry Seals, Director of Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. We threw together just kind of a reminder to recap to a lot of you who've seen it multiple times. Just a quick PowerPoint along with a little bit of a drone video to show you where we're at. We've had some questions there. It seems as if the project has stalled, but the contractor run into some problems with testing and getting the bacteria test to be acceptable on the water main. Again, everybody knows it's the Main Street project, Jeff to Vine. It is a full width, full depth, including all of the utilities underground. Typically, that's where we run into if we're going to have a snag with the project is the underground utilities, either with conflicts of it's in the same corridor or in this sample, the water main didn't pass the original bacteria test. They did go through multiple times, and just to kind of give you some background on what it takes in the general public, once you have the main installed, that they put in some higher strength chlorine tablets. They kind of flush it first, put those in, let it set. They call it kind of cooking the line. And then they have to send a sample in, which takes 7 days for the lab to grow the bacteria. If it fails, they start the process over again. We have seen this in the past on larger mains where, they don't get enough volume when they're flushing, depending on the size of the line they're flushing the main line with. You don't typically see this in the smaller diameter pipe. Anyway, just, back to the kind of the generals. The funding, again, it was a little over 2.8 million. It's about 1.7 million from DOT Surface Transportation Grant Program, and Waterworks has somewhere around 430,000 in local funding. We'll go ahead and just real quick maybe run down the corridor. You can see the first phase, which everybody was, which was that intersection at Jeff and Main. Again, that's open. That helped a lot of the congestion that we had anytime you close one of the main bridges downtown. You can see the construction zone. It gives you a real good aerial. On the very right, you can see the water main, and then you can see the open pits that they left open. That's where the actual water surfaces for different individual buildings will be connected, because when they do the first cooking, you got to remember the old main is still active and the buildings are getting their water feed from the old main. That also showed the storm on the far left and the other utility down the middle. And again, you can see each of the trenches, so they pretty much have to leave that open until it passes for they can do the connection, which they're doing now. But anyway, just kind of wanted to give you the overview of what that construction site would look like. You can see the intakes in the storm system also along the edge, the left edge. We did encounter, which is not uncommon. One of the buildings had a service that went in, and then inside the building, it was connected to the adjacent building. That's something that we'll have to add to the project and do a separate service line up to a stop box. Then it would be up to the business to get a plumber to take it from the stop box into his building. Which Waterworks likes to see. I mean, it's kind of hard to shut one building off for not paying their bill if it's on a single feed. So we correct that as we go through. That'd be the same with sanitary laterals and other items. One of the things that was questioned is how do we communicate with the businesses? On this particular project, we set up a regular scheduled construction meeting on Tuesday morning at 9. We did send out letters to all the adjacent business owners in that phase and invite them to come. It's typically lightly attended. A lot of times utilities and the contractor and our crew is all that's there. Sometimes, the businesses show up. Just depends on where they're at in the project. So that's just background information that you can kind of look through at your leisure. One of the points I wanted to make was we do log a lot of the communications. On the back page, for instance, not all of them are kept in our inspection records, but the individual businesses that's along phase 2, you can see the contact. Some of the businesses are better than others. You can see a couple of them that were there every day for, a month straight when it's affecting them directly, their access point. Others, they're happy with coming out once every week or two. And then again, we have a city inspector on staff and with DOT funding, and it's pretty much required to have them full time anytime there's construction. So the businesses, if they do have a question, he's always available. We make sure that's known in the beginning of the project and throughout. It's a pretty small construction zone, so it's relatively easy to find our inspector if they do have questions. Or they can call City Hall and get someone within engineering, and we're pretty responsive, especially when we have somebody on site. So that's where we're at. They're going to start doing sub-base work, rock work, and it won't be too long. You'll see a surface restoration work start, which is the pavement.
Okay. Any questions for Larry? Good job and good report on the communication. Okay. All right, Andy, back to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Additional items. The second item you see listed is the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee update meeting, which will be held at the end of this month, August 28th to be specific. That'll be at Bridgeview at 5:30 p.m. For those that have attended the first meeting, this meeting will be a follow-up with our contacts at Confluence, the firm that is conducting the comprehensive plan for us. As my understanding is there will be additional definition of concepts and steps moving forward in terms of developing the plan, and would encourage folks that are on those committees to attend those meetings. The other items, which are not listed, but as I shared with the mayor earlier today, the next item you would see would be the OEDC update. Sharon Stroh is with us this evening. So Mayor, again, I will defer to you.
Good evening, Sharon. We call you forward and ask you to give us an update. I think you sent a flyer out to all the council, so they should have that in their packet.
Well, I certainly hope so. I was able to get it to Chris yesterday. Good evening, everybody. I just want to walk you through a few things to update you on what we've been up to since the last time I was here. The bullets that I'm going to go through are pretty much reflective of the 5 strategic priorities that were approved by the OEDC board in March of this year. And they guide the work of us with funding provided by private and public funds. I'll put my disclaimer in here. The report includes various levels of detail that are available to release in a public setting. As you can imagine, there's a fine line between transparency and confidentiality, and OEDC is always pretty cautious about releasing information that could risk long-term development. So I'll be as responsive as I can to your questions after the presentation. The first one is site development and preparation. Many of you know, and it's been very public, Helgerson Flats continues to move forward. We're in the final stages of site certification, and that is still on schedule to complete in October of this year. Here's a point that I do want to mention, because utility and infrastructure capacity are critical elements to the certification. OEDC has spent a fairly significant portion of its project grant budget on providing engineering services to the city of Ottumwa, which includes about a little over $8,000 to Garden and Associates on a sewer capacity analysis, a little over $15,000 on a traffic impact study to McClure Engineering, and finally about $5,500 for a sewer improvement cost analysis, also to McClure Engineering. I believe that's the only study that I have not yet forwarded to Larry Seals, but we'll do so very soon. About $29,000 from that project budget. There are already some prospects for Helgerson Flats, and more are being marketed. The OEDC website is a pretty good pitch for us. It includes mapping, drone footage, demographics, labor shed, placemaking information, and then we're also having conversations with site selectors and the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Our second initiative is a targeted industry recruitment. Based on the analysis information that was presented July 31st by the firm of AD Advantage, that's ADY. Ottumwa and Wapello County are ripe for industries that include food and beverage production, machinery manufacturing, automotive supply chain, distribution and warehousing, and professional scientific and technical services that complement those industries. I want to add that while those are most complementary to the existing manufacturers that are already in our region, discussion also focused that afternoon on options such as data centers or data processing. We talked about aviation services with the improvements made to the airport, and bioprocessing or anaerobic digestion options. As OEDC goes forward, it will confer with other development partners so that we know are familiar with each other's recruitment efforts. I do want to mention and go back to the traffic impact study. There is a deep concern about increased truck traffic in the Helgerson Flats area, especially if it is generated in an already congested area. As noted above, OEDC conducted a comprehensive traffic impact analysis, and Public Works commissioned a TEEP study, both of which will be presented here at City Council on August 21st, so that we can review options and then look at any modifications in the area that includes that North Court frontage, US 149, Foxack Road kind of thing up there by Tractor Supply. Just a reminder, OEDC does not have jurisdiction over the property. Only the city and DOT can authorize changes to improve traffic flow out there. But we can provide some additional services to help move that project forward, including ongoing engineering if that's required. One last element, OEDC has also been identifying land for redevelopment, especially near the airport, as mentioned earlier, some commercial areas, and then other former industrial sites, so that there may or may not be a need for annexation. The third bullet is business attraction, retention, and expansion. At least once every year, OEDC has a very comprehensive conversation with our local manufacturers to get a snapshot of what current opportunities or threats might be impacting their production or other elements of their business. In the past few months, OEDC has learned about everything from an increased need for natural gas capacity out at the Eddyville complex to a handful of capital improvement plans. And obviously, one that never seems to go away is workforce upskilling and new demand for attraction. OEDC fielded 26 inquiries for land, building, and business opportunities in the last quarter. It responded to 13 requests for information. And it currently has 7 of those still in play, although some are more active than others, depending on what the requirements are. And I think that this is important to note that OEDC was asked to assist with temporary relocation options for Vermeer, who was hit by that EF3 tornado in July. And the good news is Ottumwa has a few large square footage options that, at least for now, appear favorable, and we're moving ahead with the broker that owns the property. The fourth bullet is about the navigation assistance that we attempt with business growth. For many manufacturers, or for any manufacturer that meets the criteria for grants, loans, tax credits, or other financial assistance, OEDC can often be, although is not exclusive, as the liaison for the application and/or the Iowa Project Questionnaire, which is the document that's required to receive any state funding from IEDA. And there are many partners that assist with funding options. The applicant has to negotiate their way through a variety of programs to be awarded financial help, and there is obviously no guarantee, but we do try and make those the best proposals possible when they go to the affirming boards. A few examples of those include Plastipac, CNC, Cargill, and Winger, just off the top of my head. The last one is about talent strategies, and that's often referred to as workforce as well. We really need to upskill and attract some better workforce options, and that's a priority in almost every community across the state and across the nation for that matter. So Ottumwa is no exception in this. From working with high school programs to cataloging all the different forms of workforce initiatives, and you'd be amazed at how many of those are already in play, to partnering with Iowa Workforce Development and being the lead organization on a biennial labor shed report. OEDC plays a role in participating with a lot of these initiatives. A lot of them that you're probably familiar with: Cradle College Careers, also known as C3, Spark Tank. We act as a business liaison or manufacturing liaison. I serve on an apprenticeship advisory panel, that kind of thing. And then I guess last but not least, I'm just going to wrap up with some miscellaneous. OEDC supports the Industrial Roundtable. That's Annie Morris's initiative to try and get our manufacturers together on a quarterly basis and talk about some of the issues that are at hand. From time to time, we provide guest programming for these quarterly meetings. OEDC has partially funded phase 3 of the Main Street Facade Improvement Program, which is going on right now to the tune of about $20,000. Again, these are much smaller numbers than the city of Ottumwa puts forward, but we do play the role that we can with the dollars that we have available. And then OEDC has provided about $2,200 in support over the last couple of years for electrical improvements out at the airport for Fly Iowa and Fly Ottumwa, respectively. And that kind of wraps up the report. I really should have put an ending paragraph together, but I didn't, and I thought that I could wing it, and obviously I can't. So I'll open it up to any questions from the floor.
Any questions for Sharon?
Looking at the number of inquiries for land and requests for information, those feel like high numbers. Do they compare? How do they compare to other years or other quarters? Do you happen to know on if they seem like you've seen an increase in RFIs?
Actually, there's an uptick. When I started about 4 years ago, we were probably seeing no more than about a dozen. Now we're seeing more and more frequently, and we're getting a lot of feedback from our website, but the website's been restructured so that available land and buildings are available with a mere click. So folks can breeze through those, look at what square footage is available, what the amenities are, if they're for lease or sale, what they want to do with them. Many of them have indoor photographs as well as outdoor photographs so that folks could actually look and see what the internal workings look like, or if they're just clear span. Overhead doors, that kind of thing. And then they will go through the website to contact us. I have an interest in this. What can you tell me? OEDC is not a realtor. We don't act as a broker. We just try and put people together that offer something with somebody that's interested.
Any other comments, questions? Hearing none, thank you, Sharon. We'll look forward to seeing you on the 21st when we do our traffic
bet.
impact study.
Thank you all.
Turn it back to Andy for additional information.
Thank you, Mayor. The very last item I have is the succession plan. I believe I've been sharing with council members and even some of the staff that we have some key department heads that within the next 5 to 6 years will in fact likely be retiring from the city of Ottumwa. And to that extent, I've made contact and corresponded a great deal with Cassandra Halls to the top. She's going to put together a succession plan for us. I go back to conversations that began not long after I came on board, and that is training sufficiently staff to prepare them for some of the changes. I will tell council that one of the items I particularly liked about her succession plan is that she's going to conduct a series of interviews with not just department heads, but also the division chiefs, and quite frankly, a lot of the staff folks and the other folks that fall down a little bit lower on the organizational chart, and conduct interviews with them. And one of the items she's creating as a component of this is known as pathways, and that is ascertaining whether or not certain employees have an ambition to continue in that particular field, and are they in fact department head material. So I want to say it is more than simply a plan to decide what's going to happen when some of the key department heads begin to retire. I think it's a worthy plan. When Bob J. returns tomorrow, he will sign that document, and then we will forward that to Cassandra Halls. She will begin, my understanding, as I shared with the mayor previously, her work is to begin sometime in the late September, early October timeframe. That's all I have, unless you or council members have any questions or comments, Mayor.
Randy? Good plan, Ron. I'm glad we're moving ahead on that.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, item E on our agenda is opportunity for citizens to comment on items on the agenda. Is there anybody that has filled out a slip that wants to address an item on the agenda? Is there one in there, Brad? Chief, would you get that up to our city clerk, and we'll see who it is and what topic they want to address. Thank you very much. Okay. The one that we have, I think we'll wait until item later in the agenda when it's public forum for any comments about any topic. So let's move on to item F, and Chris, go ahead and give us the update.
Bid review and award contract for asbestos removal in the City Hall basement. Recommendation, award the contract for asbestos removal in City Hall basement to Environmental Edge in the amount of $16,230.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Gene? Gene, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city of Ottumwa received 2 bids for asbestos removal in the basement of City Hall. The low bid was from Environmental Edge of Ottumwa for $16,230. The other bid was from Controlled Asbestos of Des Moines for $18,873. This project will involve removing asbestos containing flooring materials and pipe insulation from the basement of Ottumwa City Hall. The asbestos removal should be completed by August 31st, 2018.
Are there any questions for Gene?
Mr. Mayor,
Comments? Yes, go ahead.
I've got just one quick question. And Gene, if you can provide this just for clarification's sake, because I recall the asbestos remediation work actually began early 2016 timeframe with a number of park staff. Is it fair to say that once this work is completed, that will essentially conclude the abatement remediation?
Yeah, it will, except for the boiler room, and we've been told that we're not supposed to touch the asbestos on the boiler until the boiler itself has been removed.
All right, thank you,
or
Mayor.
replaced.
Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
So with that being said, what's the expected life that we still have left on that boiler before we have to consider that?
That's probably a question for Dwight, but I think we're going to get another 2 or 3 years out of it, most likely,
Okay.
for the existing boiler.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Okay, then take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Bid review and award contract for the 2018 RFP number 8, brick sewer repair, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. Award the contract for the 2018 RFP number 8, brick sewer repair to Christie Construction of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the amount of $18,410.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Skip. Go ahead, Larry.
This contract is for the repair of a brick teardrop sewer on Jefferson Street. The contractor will be responsible for damming and bypass pumping of the existing sewer flow, pumping the void area free of water material, inspecting and taking pictures of the void prior to repairing, and making repair using Super M concrete. An RFP was let for this work. 1 bid was received and opened August 1st, 2018 at 2 p.m. The low bidder for the work is Christie Construction of Ottumwa, Iowa, in the sum of $18,410. A copy of the bid tab and planned holder list is attached. This will be funded from the sewer fund balance.
Any questions for Larry? We'll have to see you getting that done. Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Bid review and award the contract for the 2018 RFP number 9, Alta Vista Street Patch, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. Recommendation, award the contract for the 2018 RFP number 9, Alta Vista Street Patch to McClure Concrete of Florence, Iowa, in the amount of $5,670.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented. Second.
Thank you. Go ahead, Larry.
The contractor will be responsible for saw cutting, removing, disposing of approximately 63 square yards of pavement, placing and finished an 8-inch PCC pavement patch on a 6-inch, 3/4-inch roadstone, and restoration of the site. All material, labor, equipment, mobilization, traffic control, seeding and fertilizing will be considered incidental to the bid item. All work shall comply with SUDA specifications. An RFP was let for this work. 3 bids were received and opened on August 1st, 2018 at 2 p.m. The low bidder for the work is McClure Concrete of Florence, Iowa, in the sum of $5,670. This is at the intersection of West and Alta Vista Street. It finishes that street work we've been working on.
Any questions for Larry? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Bid review and award contract for the 2018 RFP number 14, Lambourne Sewer Repair, and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. Recommendation, award the contract for the 2018 RFP number 9, Lambourne Sewer Repair to DC Concrete and Construction of Dowds, Iowa, in the amount of $11,395.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Victor. Go ahead, Larry.
The city has experienced a sewer blockage on Lamberton Street at the intersection of Lincoln due to debris in the line and poor accessibility, which basically means we don't have a manhole at both ends. The city is unable to verify the exact location of and the cause of the blockage, so the contractor will begin work at the lower end of the known problem area and then work uphill until we get through what the problem is. This RFP is to remove necessary pavement, excavate to the sewer, remove and replace sections of the impaired sewer, backfill, and pour street patch. RFP was let for this work. 2 bids were received and opened August 1st, 2 p.m. Low bidder for the work is DC Construction of Dowds, Iowa, in the sum of $11,395. We were able to tell that it is a concrete blockage, but it is river rock, so it is old concrete in this line. We haven't used that for many, many years.
Any other questions for Larry? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the sale of city-owned property located at 604 East Main Street.
Good evening again, Jody. You have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This one is what we would call a do-over. Last time I was here, I presented this to you and told you that the buyer was offering us $571 for the property. In fact, they are offering $517. And so we need to redo the process in order to transfer the property to them. Potentials offered the city $517 for this dilapidated commercial building, and the one next to it is owned by Potentials. The building hasn't been occupied for a number of years, and the roof is leaking and causing substantial interior damage. So Potentials intends to rehab the building once they get title to it, and we are recommending that the city sell this building to them.
This is a public hearing. If there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item, seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Victor.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 200, 2018, accepting the offer and approving the sale of city-owned property located at 604 East Main Street to Potentials Incorporated for the sum of $517 and rescinding resolution number 182, 2018. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 200, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Jody? Seeing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the status of funded activities for the 2016 Ottumwa Facade Improvements Project.
Good evening, Brad.
Hello, Mayor and Council. We are at the part of the facade project where we have to hold the status of funded activities public hearing to release the second 50% of your grant. So I'll try to keep this nice and sweet. You were awarded in July of 2016 a grant from the Iowa Economic Development Authority, IEDA, Community Development Block Grant, CDBG funds for the purpose of making facade improvements to buildings in the 100 and 200 blocks of East Main Street. You qualified for the CDBG funds based on the HUD national objective of preventing or eliminating slums and blight. I know it's not a sexy term, but that's what they call it. The slum and blight inventory was performed by my predecessor in July of 2015, and city's resolution designating the slum and blight area was passed by council in August of 2015. To qualify for the grant, at least a quarter of the target area must be in what they call fair or poor condition. And to qualify for the program, a building must have been designated as fair or poor condition in that assessment. There were 36 parcels in the target area, that 2-block area. 11 were classified as good or excellent, which is 31%. 25 were classified as fair or poor, which is 69%. So that's how you qualified. The ratings for each building are determined by applying a variety of criteria outlined by HUD. So that's not one of our personal real assessments or personal judgments. It's a defined criteria that we applied to each building. So the original scope of work for the project was to rehab facades of 18 buildings consisting of 25 facades. Work items included, but are not limited to, masonry repair, replacement, removal of slip covers, paint, window repair replacement, door repair replacement. The city was applied for and was awarded $500,000 in CDBG funds. The city was to match the grant award with $575,450 in local funds, including monies from the city, the county, Ottumwa Regional Legacy Foundation, as Sharon said earlier, the OEDC, and local property owner match. This is only phase 2, by the way. The original estimated cost of the project was $1,075,450. After the grant was awarded, but before final designs were completed, 3 buildings were sold in the district, and the new owner chose to withdraw them from the project. Another building owner could not continue participation due to unforeseen health issues, but another property was sold and was able to enter to the project prior to the bidding. So prior to bidding, we ended up with a net loss of 2 buildings, or 3 buildings, excuse me. 2 bids were received for the project, and the contract was awarded to the lowest bidder, which was Christian Contracting here out of Ottumwa. The original bid was $1,441,663 without the alternatives. Through value engineering discussions, the construction contract was amount was reduced to $1,070,739.34. Construction began on this project in September of 2017. Earlier this summer, we were forced to withdraw another 2 properties from the project due to a property owner's lack of responsiveness. This owner was given 9 months more than any other owners to sign the necessary construction agreements for the contractor to actually start physically working on the building. This created substantial delay in the progress of the project due to contractor and subcontractor sequencing and buying materials and such. So with that change and the other change orders received to date, the overall project now, including architectural and administration contracts, currently sits at $1,184,000. The project now has 13 buildings in it consisting of 21 facades. To date, 7 of those are substantially complete, 5 are nearly complete, 7 are under construction, and 2 have yet to see actual work be done on them. The project is estimated to be complete by the end of 2018, assuming weather continues to cooperate, which it didn't today, but that's okay. Including Pay App 12, which is the one that we just received in July. The contractors billed approximately 53% of the contract. The architect, Klingner and Associates out of Pella in Burlington, has billed 97% of their contract, and the grant administration, which is me, we ran out of money a long time ago. The CDBG contract end date is July 31, 2019, and leave it for any questions, comments, or concerns.
This is a public hearing on this item, so if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this particular item, now's the time to step forward. Seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you, Brad, for your report. Look forward to seeing you again.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the sale of city-owned property located at 417 Lillian.
Good evening again, Jody.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bids for the sale of 417 Lillian were accepted until 2 o'clock, July 31st. We received 6 bids for this property, and the best bid was from Richard Slaughter in the amount of $5,800. The property will be transferred by quitclaim deed, and the buyer will pay all costs of conveyance.
Okay, this is also a public hearing, so if there's anyone that wants to address this particular item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Skip. Victor?
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 215, 2018, accepting the bid and approving the sale of city-owned property located at 417 Lillian to Richard Slaughter for the sum of $5,800. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 215, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Jody? Seeing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Resolution number 212, 2018, accepting a gift of real estate at 1605 East 2nd Street, Ottumwa, Iowa, from Larry B. Seals and Dixie L. Parker. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 212, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Skip. Any questions? Jody, are you going to make any comment?
Yes, Your Honor. This is one of 2 properties being donated to the city tonight that we're requesting that the county, that the city accept. Placarded property located on 2 lots at 1605 East 2nd Street. The owners are Larry B. Seals and Dixie L. Parker, and they wish to donate the property to the city. The donation avoids either a 657A action or a condemnation proceeding. The city's building inspector will determine which direction to proceed after a full inspection. City staff is recommending the acceptance of the donation. The council would need to authorize the mayor to sign any documents necessary to finalize the acceptance of the gift.
Any questions for Joni? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 213, 2018, accepting a gift of real estate at 817 West Street, Ottumwa, Iowa, from Charles E. Shirley, the trustee of the Charles E. Shirley Revocable Trust, dated March 26, 2009. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 213, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Holly. Okay, go ahead, Joni.
Thank you, Your Honor. The owner of this vacant lot located at 817 West Street would like to donate it to the city. We've taken a look at it and we're willing to recommend acceptance of the donation. It'll be added to our list of vacant lots that are available for sale. And again, council would need to authorize the mayor to sign any documents necessary to finalize the acceptance of the gift.
Any questions for Joni? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 214, 2018, authorize city staff to bring action in the Wapello County District Court against Brett Geiger for zoning violations and nuisance and safety code violations on 3 buildings in downtown Ottumwa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 214, 2018.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented, Your Honor.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Joni, you've had a lot of contacts, so give us a little update.
All right. Brett Geiger, individually and doing business as Main Street USA LLC, owns several properties in downtown Ottumwa. The city has been working with Mr. Geiger, particularly regarding buildings at 116 South Market, 307 East Main, 326 East Main, and 236 East Main. This area is zoned C4, which is a downtown mixed-use district. These 4 buildings were filled with debris, rubbish, miscellaneous items, and were being used as enclosed warehousing. This is not a permitted use in the C4 district except with a conditional use permit. Mr. Geiger has failed to even apply for a conditional use permit as of this date. After obtaining an administrative search warrant from the court, inspections were made of all 4 properties. Mr. Geiger did cooperate with these inspections. Following confirmation of the condition of these properties, a notice to correct was issued to Mr. Geiger indicating that not only did these 4 buildings not conform with zoning regulations, but they did not meet fire and safety regulations and were deemed a nuisance. Mr. Geiger was given until July 20th to complete repairs and remove the debris from these buildings. A follow-up inspection occurred on July 19. Again, Mr. Geiger cooperated with city staff. It appeared that the contents of 326 East Main, which was extremely full prior to that date, were almost completely gone, but very little appeared to have been done on the other 3 buildings. It does appear that Mr. Geiger is working on the remaining 3 buildings. At that time, 3 civil citations were issued against Mr. Geiger for city code violations that had not been resolved. While Mr. Geiger is cooperating at this time with city staff, it appears necessary to bring an action to district court to enjoin Mr. Geiger from continuing to violate city zoning regulations, nuisance codes, and fire and safety regulations. With council blessing, I'd like to file an action in district court for a declaratory judgment action, confirming the violations, consolidating the current and any future civil citations for jurisdiction in district court, enjoining by temporary and permanent injunction Mr. Geiger from these violations at these buildings and any other buildings he owns in the downtown area, and authorizing the city to correct the violations at Mr. Geiger's expense if those violations are not resolved in a reasonable time pursuant to court order. The action requests that Mr. Geiger pay the city's legal fees and court costs in this prosecution. City staff also requests permission to hire outside counsel if necessary to assist with the prosecution of this matter. And I've attached a copy of the proposed petition is in your packet, and an affidavit from Kevin Flanagan, our Director of Health Inspection, Solid Waste and Planning. So with your blessing, if you approve this, I have everything ready to be filed tomorrow. I'll be glad to answer any questions you would have.
Any questions for Joan? I think we've been dealing with this for some months, and it's good to get some resolution on it, so. Any other comments or questions?
Is there more buildings than just these you've listed?
Right now, those are the buildings that we can see into that are clearly in violation of city code. There could be some other buildings. We would have to get an administrative search warrant and have some corroborating evidence to suggest they're in the same condition. Right now, we are not aware of that.
Okay. All right. You ready to vote? Okay. Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Okay. We'll be anxious to hear your follow-up, Johnny. At this time, I'd like to have the council's blessing. Let's reverse the order and go to public forum input. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the council about an item not on the agenda? We have a Brandy Meredith. Brandy, we'll give you a few minutes to make your comments, so please get to your point and tell us what you want us to consider.
Sure. Good evening. The purpose of my visit tonight is to address the process and fees associated with pit bulls collected by animal control. Please know that I'm not asking for the ban on pit bulls and pit mixes to be lifted. As we all know, pit bulls and pit mixes are illegal in town. However, we also know that each year there are several picked up by animal control officers or the law enforcement office. What I am proposing tonight is that we waive the rescue fee for pit bulls and to standardize the pit bull fee process between the city and the county. So that everyone understands the current process, I would like to share that with you. Law enforcement officers collect the stray pit bulls and city-eligible dogs, and they're placed either in Heartland's care or Pipestone's care for the 5 days. This hold allows the rightful owners to collect the dogs according to the city code. If the dog is not collected within 5 days, the city relinquishes control to the city-eligible dogs to Heartland free of charge, where the pit bulls have to actually be rescued out and pay a fee. The current process puts the pit bulls collected in the city at a steep disadvantage, as any animal that is deemed a pit bull or a pit mix is only eligible to be pulled by animal control by a rescue or shelter outside of the city limits of Ottumwa. Rescue has to pay $89 for a pull fee. They also have to prove 501c3 status and proper license documentation. $89 may not seem like a lot, but to a rescuer and shelter it is. Rescues typically do not pay for dogs, especially ones that are unknown, such as the vet history, temperament, and personality of the dog. This forces rescues to scramble to collect donations or to pull funds from other allocated places to save the dog that's on death row. If in the packet I will provide, you'll see that there are a few dogs in your packet, you will see a few dogs that have been rescued by animal control in the recent years. So I'm just going to give you a couple of pictures just to kind of give you some, I guess, dogs to reference. To put my first point into perspective, I collected data from the city and the county from January 2015 through July 6, 2018 on dogs that have been picked up. In the handout, you will see that the rescues had to pick up and pay for 4 dogs in any one given year. If the fee is $89, the city is being asked to absorb roughly $400. This is pennies in the grand scheme of things when you look at what the city has already waived since a new contract with Heartland Humane Society has gone into effect. This year alone, the city has waived approximately $2,900 in fees. My second point tonight is that I would like to see the city standardize the pit bull process with that of the county. Currently, the county sends all animal either to rescue, such as Heartland, or to an outside rescue at no cost. The county actually absorbs the fee, so if there is a fee, they are, in essence, eating the fee to save the dog. They typically notify Amy Crow with Paws and Claws Rescue and Rehab the day of that a stray pit bull has come in. That allows ample time for the rescue to be located and less time for the animal to be in the custody of Eastview, which holds the contract for the stray pit bulls and eligible dogs. As I mentioned previously, the contract the city has with Heartland allows them to assume control of the city eligible animals at no charge to Heartland. Yet rescues are forced to pay for pit bulls or they're euthanized. The cost to the city to euthanize a dog ranges anywhere from $65 to $83, depending on the number of days that the animal is in the city's custody. These fees are already being absorbed by the city, so I'm trying to understand why we choose to euthanize a dog when we're actually paying roughly the same amount of money when there's already a rescue that's willing to take that burden on. Again, I'm not asking for the ban to be lifted. I'm just asking for a level playing field, because currently there isn't. In closing, according to the ASPCA, roughly 1.5 million shelter animals are euthanized each year. 670,000 of those are dogs. Of that 670,000 dogs, roughly 40% of those are pit bulls or pit mixes. So I ask you, do you want Ottumwa to continue to add to that 40% statistic, or do we want to safely remove the banned animals from the city?
Thank you very much. We'll take your material. You said you had handouts for the council, and review that material and ask our city attorney and our animal control officer to review it and give us a recommendation in a couple of weeks or as soon as possible. I know we have some other pressing issues that we're dealing with right now in light of last week. So thank you for your report.
Thank you.
A couple of other things I would bring to the council's attention. As you know, we did have some neighbors that experienced the tornado in Pella and Marshalltown, and Tim Richmond, who is our emergency management coordinator, was actually en route coming back from Des Moines when the tornado hit in Pella, and was able to participate in the command center there. And I asked him if he'd be willing to come to the August meeting and give us a short update of some of the things he learned being at the scene firsthand, and also to give us some things to think about, because we do have some responsibility as a governing body of what we would do if something happened here. And it's especially important in terms of chain of command that if we don't have his involvement, we may not qualify for state or federal aid as the other cities have. So he's planning to do that, and he'll bring some material and give us some information about that. I also want to mention that I did participate with the governor in the Governor's Volunteer Awards. It was held at Bridgeview this past 1st of August, and I would like to issue a challenge to our Ottumwa organizations. I think we have some outstanding organizations and volunteers for those groups. And when I see 25 or 30 people from Burlington, Keosauqua, Oskaloosa getting those awards, I'd like to see more Ottumwa people get recognized for the good work that they're doing. So pass the word around to your organizations that you belong to, and if we have a year to get ready for this again, the governor is very good about coming and giving a certificate to the people who meet the criteria for that award. So I'd like to see more Ottumwa people recognized. Also want to keep reminding the general public and the council too that September 7th, WHO is going to be coming to town to do their Iowa State RVTV, and they're going to be at Bridgeview at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. At 4 o'clock, there will be some competition between Iowa and Iowa State fans, and we're asking people to wear their school colors and get in the spirit, and then go to the football game, which will be a home game between Ottumwa and Newton. And then there will be a band and activities at Bridgeview after the game. So should be a lovely Friday night in Ottumwa, and we want to show the state Ottumwa's on the move and doing some really good things. The last 2 days have been really exciting and some good news for the community. Members of our council, Matt Delby and Skip and Andy and I were able to participate in the Ottumwa Schools Construction Technology Kickoff Program yesterday at 1230 South Sheridan. This is a cooperative arrangement between the city and the school system. We donated the land to the technology program, and they are going to build a new house on that property. It's a beautiful lot, and I think it's getting a beginning for the new trades program so that some of our young people can get the skill necessary to learn carpentry, electricity, plumbing, roofing, and all the things necessary for the construction trades. And it's articulated with Indian Hills Community College too. They've had an active role in this program. So it was nice to see the beginning of this program and re-energize that program, because it in the past has been very successful. And then this morning at 11 o'clock, I was able to represent the city in a groundbreaking with Community First. For those of you who don't know, Community First is a credit union that's been in our community for over 80 years. And they decided corporately to build a brand new corporate headquarters out on Hutchinson Avenue. And while it's actually in the county right now, they will be working with our city engineering department and coordinating with city and county people. But they're going to be building a building that will house up to 100 people. And it's a great development for our community and for that corridor out on the east end of town. So thanks to the Community First Board of Directors and their CEO, Greg Hanshaw, who made the decision, because they have offices all over the state, and they could have chosen another community to put their headquarters. So we're just pleased that they're staying here. With that, the only other thing, and I think this, I might be willing to share more at a later time, but I did have the opportunity to attend a Robert D. Ray and Billy Ray meeting in Pella recently. The topic was civil conversations. And I want to remind that, I think we can disagree with each other, but let's do it in a civil and professional, polite way. A person from Drake University came and led us through some exercises to talk about how to deal with some difficult subjects. And I think sometimes with government, we forget that we don't always have to agree, but we don't have to be disagreeable in how we handle each other. So it was a good session, and I have some notes and some material downstairs I'd be glad to share with council and city department heads. With that, is there any other business or comments that council want to make? Or are there other topics you want to bring up? One of the things that a couple of you have approached me on, and we've talked about this, we may want to consider doing a small retreat to do goal setting and look at where we're headed, especially as we get into our comprehensive plan process. So give that some thought, and we'll be talking to you more about that as we go forward. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Victor.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Okay, 6:35.